Hi, boys and girls. I'm now going to start reading you Chapter 6 of Wizards of Once. Chapter 6, Be Careful What You Wish For. The three youngsters, the bird, the sprites, and the animals stared at that single drop of green blood with growing horror, and in Czar's case, excitement. Witch blood, said Czar in delight. What do you mean, witch blood? Protested Bodekin. Witches are extinct. But he did not scoff as convincingly as he might have done had he been tucked snugly behind the 7 ditches of the Warrior Hill Fort. There was something about bad woods after dark, when the hair ice was prickling and growing all over each twisting twig of dead wood, that made one fear that possibly, just possibly, witches might not be so extinct after all. This is a witch-killing sword, said Czar. Look, it says so on the blade. And it found its way out of your warrior dungeons because it sensed that the witches were walking once more in the wood. That's not possible, said Bodekin, although it is true, said Wish slowly, that just before Czar caught us in the trap, we were being attacked by something, and I think I may have wounded the something with the sword. You were being attacked by a witch. That is witch blood, Czar smiled. No, it isn't. Lots of things have green blood, said Bodekin. Cat monsters, our ogre breaths, green teeth goblins, green ogres. It can't be a witch because witches are extinct. Probably extinct, corrected Caliburn. Definitely not extinct, said Czar, pointing to the center of the clearing. There, right beside Czar's witch trap, was another black feather, a feather like a crow's but significantly larger. Czar picked it up. As the feather came close to the feather that was hanging around Czar's belt, both feathers began to glow. A dull, greeny glow, a glow of ominous magic. And, as Czar held the feather up to the tip of the sword, the stain glowed too, like a luminescence of a firefly, but with a spookier green tinge to it. Witches, Czar grinned. There was a terrible silence. Witches might have returned to the bad woods, the most dreadful creatures ever to have walked the earth alive once more. The two enemy groups, animals and sprites, stepped a little closer to one another, looking out at the dark forest all around them, joining in mutual horror at what might possibly be out there. If that really is witch blood, it probably isn't. But if it is, every single drop is very, very dangerous, shivered Caliburn. Wipe it off on the tree bark, Czar, before it hurts anyone. Or, oh, I'm not going to waste it, said Czar. There must have been a reason that I caught someone called Wish in my witch trap. What are the chances of that happening? I mean, what are the chances of that happening? I wish to be magic, and the universe is trying to tell me that it's granted me my wish. It could be telling you something else. The universe is very complicated, shrieked Caliburn. It could be testing you. It could be warning you not to make wishes as foolish as that one. But Czar was not listening to Caliburn. Here was fate showing him the way to get magic out of a witch. Do not touch that, Czar shouted Caliburn, so anxious that the feathers dropped out of him like a black rain. Don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it, hissed the sprites. But Czar reached out the palm of his hand and pressed it hard against the tip of the sword, where the green drop of blood was glistening. He scratched it once, twice, in the shape of the first letter of his name, X. And from that moment, Czar's story took a different path, a path that would be very difficult to come back from. No, begged Caliburn. It's too late. Too late? Too late? The tip of the enchanted sword pierced Czar's hand, and he screamed and doubled over in pain, holding his hand to his stomach. Caliburn took the wings away from his eyes. Oh, Czar, what have you done? Czar straightened up. His eyes were alight with excitement, although the pain of it was making him shiver and shake his hand like it had been burned. Too late, Czar grinned, holding up his hand. And, oh, Czar, I can't look. Too late. X marks the spot. There, in the center of it, was the witch blood mixed with his blood in the shape of an X. When bad stars cross and worlds collide, X marks the spot. What did he do that for? Asked Wish. I'm going to use the witch blood to perform magic, said Zar confidently. Will it work? Asked Wish. He has absolutely no idea, said Caliburn. Do you think that Zar is the sort of person who thinks things through? We don't know what that green stuff is. You better hope it isn't witch blood, Zar, because witch blood is supposed to be exceptionally dangerous. You may be able to use it to perform magic, but it could turn you over to the dark side. You might become one of the witch's creatures. Your father would lose his kingship. You might hear a little background noise because right now I have some siblings that are fighting. But I'll continue. Caliburn was even more agitated than normal. But I have to admit, he said, cheering up a smidgen, it is much more likely not to be witch blood. After all, there are plenty of things with green blood in the bad woods. Continued. Caliburn was even more agitated than normal, but I have to admit, he said, cheering up a smidgen, it is much more likely not to be witch blood after all. There are plenty of things with green witch blood in the bad woods. It could just be werewolf blood, and that would just turn you into a werewolf. Brother, said Zar, shaking his hand a little more uncomfortably, I never thought of that. Which would be inconvenient, said Caliburn. All of that, not going out after midnight and howling at the moon and the extra body hair and everything, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. It would be great, squealed Squeeze shows. You'd be all furry like me. Oh, please, turn into a werewolf, Zar. Turn into a werewolf. But Zar didn't look happy about the idea of turning into a werewolf, and Wish and Bodekin took a step backward just in case. And it may just be ogre breath blood. What? That doesn't have any effect at all, as far as we know. You're right, said Caliburn. I shall look on the positive side. Let's hope it's just ogre breath blood. In which case, we shouldn't really be hanging around here because, don't forget, what ogre breaths do try to follow you if they've wounded you to try to get their blood back. How do you know that they do that? Asked Bodekin in horror. You don't want to know, said Caliburn. Let's just say that they're kind of attached to their blood, so their methods of recovering it aren't pretty. Well, whatever you say, I'm still hoping it's witch blood, said Zar. But even if it isn't, I still have the sword, don't I? Zar hung the sword from his belt. That's not your sword, said Wish. Give us back our sword. Sword? Said Zar, innocently, opening his eyes wide. What sword? The enchanted sword that belongs to my mother and is presently shoved into your belt, said Wish. Oh, that sword, said Zar, vaulting onto King Cat's back. That sword has been given to me by fate, so I can be the boy of destiny and lead my people to fight back against you. Warriors, you can't argue with fate. It hasn't been given to you by fate, yelled Wish. You're stealing it. Give us back our sword, you burglar. Zar ignored her and turned to the others, saying, Come on, everyone. We need to get back so I can beat Looter in the spelling competition. Hang on just a sec. What about us? Asked Wish. We can't go home, can we? Your sprite's spells have sent my pony to sleep. The pony was indeed still snoring peacefully in the center of the clearing. Well, you really shouldn't have gone out in the bad woods after dark if you didn't want anything bad to happen, advised Zar, with a sheer, unbelievable Zar-like cheek. At that moment, there was a distant sound of stamping horses' feet and a cry of dogs, and the sprites hissed in alarm. Warriors! Queen Sycorax's iron warriors had spotted the giant in the bad blood territory. Zar had been right about the deep thoughts they smoke, and were galloping out of Iron Warrior Fort to investigate. There you are. Your problem is solved, said Zar to Wish. Your people are coming and they can take you home. But we'll be in big trouble because we sneaked out of the fort without permission, said Wish. Please, will you help us get back to our own fort without them finding us? I haven't got time to do that before the competition starts, said Zar, but I'll very kindly let you come with me and you can stay the night in my room in Wizard's Camp. That's burglary and kidnapping, said Wish furiously. Take us back to Iron Warrior Fort and give me back my sword, you horrible wizard. Well, I really don't see what that's got to do with me, said Zar in surprise. Why should I care about the problems of a couple of enemy warriors? I'm doing my best, but you're being very difficult." If Wish had been doubting that wizards were as bad as everyone said that they were, she instantly changed her mind. "My mother was right about you magic people," stormed Wish. "You cheats, and you're treacherous, and you have no morals, and you're completely out of control, and—" "She's right, Czar," squawked Caliburn. "You get back from the universe what you give to the universe, and kidnapping this girl and stealing her sword means that you can expect something truly dreadful from the universe in return. Do as you would be done do as you would be done by, or you will be well and truly done. Well, the universe ought to be very pleased that I'm not leaving them back here to be attacked by witches. I can't understand why you're not all happy for me," Czar frowned. "It's terribly selfish of you. I am the boy of destiny. I am the chosen one." He turned his animals and the giant. "Night Eye, Forest Heart, Crusher, bring these stupid warriors and their pony to the fort after me." "Ice fly with the warriors too," squeaked Squeeze Joes. "I'll stay with them and look out for the jagglers." "Don't feel like you have to," Squeeze Joes said Czar, rather offended. "Ice wants to," sang Squeeze Joes, ever enthusiastic. "I likes her. She's a bit funny looking, and she's got only one eye, but she smells more like an apricot than a hamburglar being, and I like her hair." Squeeze Joes flew into Wish's hair and fluffed up the back of it to make it all fuzzy like a bird's nest for him to hide in. "Well, there's no accounting for taste," huffed Czar crossly. "I'd have thought that you'd want to hang out." There he is, fluffing up Wish's hair. "I'd have thought you'd want to hang out with the boy of destiny, but if you feel sorry for these poor weirdos, then it's up to you, Squeeze Joes." "Come on, everyone," yelled Czar. "Race back to the fort." King Cat leaped forward in a silvery gray bound, and the animals followed in a wild, crazy pack, the sprites zooming ahead. Turning back time is impossible, probably. But if Czar could have seen Wish after he left her in the clearing, and if he could have seen the look on her face as she suddenly realized that she couldn't make things right by putting back the sword, and that her mother would inevitably now discover her disobedience in that uncanny way that mothers always do, and if he could have known that Wish's mother wasn't the kind of mother who had given her daughter the impression that she would forgive her daughter for anything, and if he could have seen Wish crying with the spoon, who couldn't talk, to comfort her with no words, and an assistant bodyguard, also sad, patting her on the back, Squeeze Joes pulling faces and turning cartwheels to try to cheer her up, and if he could have seen all of that, would Czar have wanted to turn back time, even though it was impossible? Possibly, but looking into the other people's lives when they are not right in front of you is also impossible. Probably. I say probably because turning back time and looking into other people's lives when they are not right in front of you are both things that require the kind of magic that we call imagination. Czar had not developed that kind of magic yet, any more than he could have moved objects with the sheer power of his mind or fly with helpful addition of wings. So as soon as Wish was out of sight, Czar promptly forgot about her and carried on with the much more important task of congratulating himself on how clever he had been as he rode on King Cat's back to Wizard Camp. Meanwhile, back in the clearing, Wish had stopped crying because Wish was a practical person and crying was not going to help now. "What are we going to do now?" said Bodekin, with round, googling eyes, bulging with dismay at the way that the situation had developed. "We're just going to have to follow that cheating burglar of a Czar boy to his wizard camp and steal the enchanted sword back off of him. And then we can sneak back into our own fort before morning," said Wish. "That sword is magic, mixed with iron, and we mustn't let it fall into the hands of the wizards." "Oh, is that all we have to do?" said Bodekin hollowly. "And here I am thinking we had a problem. On the plus side, we do get to ride these snowcats," said Wish. "Warriors don't quit, Bodekin." There's a little image. "That's a plus side," said Bodekin, looking in horror at the gigantic wild beast standing uncomfortably close to them. "But they're banned animals. It's against the rules." Timidly, Wish put out her hand and touched the unbelievable softness of Forest Heart's head. She had been absolutely dying to ride on one of these snowcats from the moment that she set eyes on them. Gingerly, Wish climbed onto his back. Will you be following us, Crusher? Wish called up to the giant. Crusher looked delighted to have his feelings consulted. I'm a bit slower than those snow cats, he said, giving a great big smile like a cracked pumpkin. But I'll be right behind you. I'll be fine. I'm a giant. Of course, what was she thinking? A giant could take care of itself. He was probably a terrifying fighter, even if he was a vegetarian. Follow Czar, please, Snowcat, said Wish. Forest Heart leaped up and bounded forward in velvet suddenness. I am actually riding a snowcat in real life, thought Wish, with disbelieving excitement as the lynx weaved smoothly through the trees, the night wind blowing back Wish's hair. Wish forgot the peril of the moment and whooped in joy. By holly and mistletoe, and witch's toenails, and the stinky breath of googly-eyed goblin hopper, thought Bodekin, all alone in the clearing. That little princess was more like her mother than she looked. Stubborn, reckless, pig-headed, and the wizard boy was even worse. What was it with royalty? Maybe it was all the rich food they ate that went straight to their heads. But what could poor Bodekin do? He couldn't stay here all alone in the possibly werewolf-infested wood, enjoying the cool night air and playing Spot the Ogre Breath. And besides, he ought to be protecting and controlling the uncomfortable little princess. That was his job. So reluctantly, he climbed on top of the second band animal, who equally reluctantly allowed himself to be climbed on, and leapt forward after Wish. The giant Crusher leaned down and gently picked up the sleeping pony in one giant hand. He smoothed the pony's mane with one giant finger like a human knight might pet a mouse, before very gently putting the pony in one of his pockets, and very slowly lumbering after Bodekin and Wish and the snowcats. Don't worry, shouted Wish across to Bodekin as Night Eye caught up with Forest Heart. It's going to be fine. Don't worry. Don't worry, said Bodekin sarcastically. It's going to be fine. So far tonight we have broken out of Warrior Fort without permission, taken an enchanted spoon as a pet, stolen your mother's extremely precious and, as it turns out, exceptionally dangerous sword, let that same sword fall into wizard hands, thus putting into peril the entire war against the magic. And now we are traveling into the heart of enemy territory on the back of a whole load of band animals, having been kidnapped by a lunatic wizard boy who may or may not be able to turn into a werewolf. Why would I worry? Bodekin's stomach gave a loud rumble. And we've missed supper. Deer burgers, my favorite. Squeeze-Joe's zipped ahead like a little streak of white lightning, screeching, Eyes the lookout! Eyes the lookout! Ah! There's a jaggler! There's a jaggler! Ooh, no, sorry, it's my mistake. It's a tree trunk. Sorry, everybody. Silence fell as they followed Czar further and further into the dark wilderness of the woods, deeper and deeper into the unknown, where strange eyes seemed to glare from behind trees and terrifying streaks of the nighttime screamed all around them. That could be jagglers, or it could be werewolves, or it could be worse than all of these. Luckily, Bodekin did not see two things that had happened after they left the clearing, or he would have been even more worried than he already was. Firstly, the giant Crusher was captured by Synchronix's iron warriors. Wish had been right to be concerned about him. Giants are deep thinkers, but unfortunately the fact that they operate in a slower time zone puts them at a severe disadvantage when faced with much smaller enemies. Crusher just about had time to think, what on earth is going on here? Before the warriors, on their plunging horses, exploded into the clearing and wound iron chains around and around his legs. The warriors warned him that if he made a sound, they would kill the pony, so the giant was silent as he was dragged away toward Iron Warrior Fort, making the treetops sway as he stumbled and blundered after the angry ant-like warriors. What were they so cross about? Giants didn't understand crossness. It seemed like such an obvious waste of time. And then there was silence, but the air in the clearing seemed to chill a few degrees colder than it had before. The snow moved and swelled like a white sea turning stormy. Was it that something was descending into the clearing? Had something been watching? Could it be that something was looking for the enchanted sword? Ah, yes, that would have made Bodekin worry. But if that something was a witch, however unlikely that may seem, Bodekin was going to need a very advanced bodyguard skills indeed. Witches' feet make no footprints, witches' bodies make no shadows, but they make the trees, the land, the moss a little colder as they pass by. And this is the cursed song of the sprites. We're not there. That's just air. That glimpse of wing that you saw right there. That dying cow, that wasn't us. So don't you cuss and don't you dare. Cross the sprites and curse their spite, and make your hand a stony fist. You can't punch us, we don't exist. We're only mist. And that was just the wind that hissed. We don't care, and we weren't there, and for a dare, we would never snap that chair and leave it looking like it was perfectly all right and wait for someone big and fat and old to put their lardy fat behind on it and smoosh, bang, ha ha ha, smash. The entire thing shatters into tiny smitherings, and then they land upon the stony floor and break their jaw and fuss and roar and cry until they cry no more. And that was not the eerie sound of a fairy laughter when they cried. And if they said it was, they lied. That dying child, that wasn't us. So don't you cuss and don't you dare cross the sprites and curse their spite and make your hand a stony fist. You can't punch us, we don't exist. We're only mist, and that was just the wind that hissed. This is the wizard fort.